Previously on The Ripper.
Pedro is suggesting to the first base umpire that he didn't like the call very much.
Yeah, to have a good post-game meal while you're at it.
Yes, indeed. Although it's beautiful overhead, the first inning is brought to you by Marvin Hudson. When you look at his strike calls to right-handers, generally a little bit more generous to the pitcher. To have you along, and the first pitch is up. 3-1 lined hard to left field. Bennington. Line to left field. That's for a long time there as well. And eventually it lands in the glove of Sosa, and an easy base for Rosarena, which causes a little bit of confusion to get a run home for Tampa.
All right, enough of that. Bottom of the first, and we have a home run.
Loud throws him out. This pitch is blasted by Andrew Vaughn. Deep left field, we are tied.
I met Andrew's new
center fielder, and Luis Roberts Jr. is hit by that pitch. Center fielder, and Luis Roberts Jr. is hit by that pitch.
Any reason for that? That seemed like a miss that Eflin doesn't normally have.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's one of the things they're going to check on right here. There's another meeting.
With hit by pitches like this, they're supposed to meet, but this is...
We're getting some conversation from the White Sox dugout.
That's interesting. He's walked one guy all year.
He's got some of the best control around.
Well, Roberts Jr. will head to first base. And now warnings are being issued.
And now Pedro Grifol just got thrown out of the game
by Marvin Hudson again.
See, okay. That's wild. He got thrown out yesterday because he was arguing he had more time to execute a challenge, and today he gets thrown out by the same guy. There you go, Pedro.
Get your money's worth, Pedro.
We kind of foreshadowed that. Last night he threw him out from shallow right field. And listen, he's a lot closer now.
I think the one thing that Pedro is arguing is that, look, if you think that it was intentional, so you're warning both teams, why don't you throw him out?
That's right. And I think Pedro just said, give us a chance, if I'm reading lips properly. I couldn't last night, but I think I got it there.
And Grifol took exception to the warning. Hudson saying, don't come out here.
That was a quick hook.
Well, you got to give a manager some time to express his displeasure about that. And, you know, he wasn't arguing balls and strikes.
Where do I begin? I guess with the home run. Chicago hits a home run. Very next pitch hits the batter in the back. The bench gets up, chirps a bit. So umpire, look at Hudson's face. He doesn't want to do this. Calls the crew together. I mean, MLB made them start getting together a few years ago. So we get warnings. More on that in a second. The manager doesn't like it, gets warned by the umpire to stop, continues anyway, and gets thrown out.
I think the one thing that Pedro is arguing is that, look, if you think that it was intentional, so you're warning both teams, why don't you throw him out?
That's right.
Per the rule, if the umpire thinks it's intentional, the options are ejection or warning. Can't ignore. You can only eject if you deem it intentional. Starting pitcher on MLB's winningest team in the first inning, not so sure about it. I just don't know, and maybe that's what the crew thought too. They don't know. That means we move on to the warning section. Unlike ejections that require intent, warnings can be issued at any time for any reason. So just the fact that there's potential animosity now is enough reason alone to warn whether or not the pitch was actually intentional. Feels bad for the hit batter's team, but those are the rules. This theory is further substantiated by...
And I think Pedro just said, give us a chance, if I'm reading lips properly. I couldn't last night, but I think I got it.
League does not want retaliation. That's the entire reason warnings exist. So that statement, the manager talking to his pitcher like that, suggests the warning was the proper move. That's just how the league wants umpires to call the game these days. That's all. Finally...
That was a quick hook.
Well, you got to give a manager some time to express his displeasure about that. And, you know, he wasn't arguing balls and strikes.
I know a lot of you will hate this, but the rule says team personnel may not come onto the field to argue warnings. If they do, they're warned to stop. If they continue, they're ejected. It's textbook, it's defensible. That said, even though it is defensible, I agree wholeheartedly it's a quick hook. Could the umpire have waited until the manager was like at the dirt circle, or at least within camera frame? Sure. Absolutely and admittedly, it would have looked a lot better to eject at that point. but it's the proper ejection by rule. So I don't think waiting would have changed the final outcome. The manager was on a mission to get tossed. So yeah, while it's correct to eject that early because you did warn, I agree it was a little quick for my taste as well. Although I think you give the manager a little more rope, he'll just use it to pull his own ejection cord anyway, and it'll look a lot cleaner.
You can see the bench immediately erupting. And Grifol took exception to the warning. Hudson saying, don't come out here. And a couple steps closer in the ejection.